Hello and welcome to episode 19 of on the Tigers, a podcast all about the National Ice Hockey League, but one that always has an eye on the Telford Tigers. This week we're going to take a look, as there's been a couple of moves around the league, some player departures, some player signings, so we'll kick off with those. Then what we'll do is we'll take a look at the results for the weekend just gone before looking ahead with my predictions for the upcoming weekend. So in terms of the first news, it's a new signing. It's a new signing at Telford Tigers. It's our third non-British trained player. So the signing of Jaden Pecker has been announced. Waiting for him to make his debut. It was announced towards the back end of last week. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see him in action. He's played with Jesse Sutton before, so Jesse Sutton and Vladimir Luka are two other non-British trained players, so there could already be some good chemistry in place then between Sutton and Pekka, so bodes well. Looking forward to seeing him in action and what impact he has for the Tigers. In terms of other moves, there's been a departure from the Solway Sharks, so Barry McKenzie has left the Solway Sharks, and there's also been one move in the league, so Archie Salisbury has left Peterborough Phantoms and joined Milton Keynes Lightning. Be interesting to see how that one plays out. Definitely a well-regarded prospect, so be interesting to see how he does at the Lightning and sort of what sort of ice time he gets there, because they've got what I would class, or certainly what I would say, is a pretty strong roster in place already. Moving on, what we'll do is take a look at the results from the past week. So it kicked off on the Friday evening with the Raiders hosting the Bees, and the Bees continued their great form. It was a 5-1 win, so a pretty comprehensive win on away ice, you'd have to say, there for the Bees. Saturday, Steel Dogs hosted the Tigers. Steel Dogs won 4-2, scored their fourth goal right on the final buzzer. Empty net goal. It was a pretty close game throughout, to be fair. Didn't seem to be too much between the teams. A goal sort of halfway through the third on the power play put Steel Dogs 3-2 up, and they were able to see the game out well with some good game management. Could have gone either way, potentially with how close the teams were. Gone to overtime and both teams got at least a point. I don't think there'd have been many complaints, but the Steel Dogs did enough to eke out the victory on Saturday. Other games on Saturday, so the Seahawks hosted the Phantoms, another close game, in fact even closer than the Tigers game. This one finished 4-3 in favour of the home team Seahawks. The Lightning hosted the Pitbulls, and it was a comprehensive victory for the Lightning, a 6-0 win over the Pitbulls. And then, can I say the two surprise results of the weekend? I guess so. Well, certainly of the Saturday. So, Solway Sharks, perhaps not a surprise. I guess they're always going to get their first win at some point, and against a Raiders team that has perhaps struggled a little bit. It might be fair to say at the start of this season, certainly in terms of results, is how it happened. So, a win on home ice for the Solway Sharks to get their first win of the season. They beat the Raiders 5-2. And then what I think was definitely the most surprising result, Leeds Knights hosted the Swindon Wildcats, and the Wildcats won 4-2. Really surprising result considering the struggles that we all know the Wildcats are going through. I really was struggling to see anything other than the Knights win and potentially a fairly big win, but no, the Wildcats have done it, and once again they're the first team to defeat the Leeds Knights at home this season, or in a season, sorry, so they did it again, or they did it previously, last season. Moving on to the Sunday, we'll start with the Tigers, as we always do. So Tigers hosted the Seahawks. Seahawks did have a 5-2 lead. It finished 5-all, and Tigers were able to score the winner in overtime. So a big result against a whole side that are doing very, very well. Also, over the weekend, on the Sunday, so the Phantoms hosted the Wildcats. Close game, but the Phantoms were able to edge out a 5-4 victory. The Bees hosted the Sharks. Bees have been flying high, I think it would be fair to say. The Sharks have perhaps been struggling, although they did get their first win the previous night. And they backed it up with their second win. A win down at the Bees, 5-4 in overtime. So a 4-point weekend for the Sharks to get their season up and running. The Knights hosted the Steel Dogs. Evidently, they were very disappointed with the previous night against the Wildcats. They ran out 5-0 winners over the Steel Dogs. Surprise! Not that the Knights won. I sort of predicted that, but the fact they were able to shut out the Steel Dogs. The Steel Dogs have got an offence that you'd expect to score. So yeah, very impressive result there. And finally, the Pitbulls hosted the Lightning. The Lightning scored another 6 goals past the Pitbulls, though the Pitbulls did get a couple this time, a 6-2 win for the Lightning. This coming weekend, the Saturday fixtures see the Tigers travel to the Raiders. I'm going to go for a Tigers win. Not even in overtime. I know we've been specialising in those, but no, a Tigers win. Knights host the Bees. I'll go for the Knights to win that one. Lightning host the Sharks. Lightning win. Steel Dogs host the Phantoms. I think this is a pretty tough one to call, but I'm going to go for Steel Dogs to win on home ice. I could see this one being settled in overtime, potentially even penalty shots. I think it's going to be that close. And then Pitbulls host the Wildcats. Pitbulls have been a bit of a bogey team, it must be said, for the Wildcats. And of course, the problems that are in Swindon is getting ice time to train. Despite all that, I'm still going to go for a Wildcats win. Sunday evening, Tigers host the Lightning. It's going to be a tough one for the Tigers, and unfortunately, I think the Lightning are going to win that one. Hate to say that. Go on, boys, prove me wrong. I'll be very happy if you do, particularly as looking at getting along to that game. Sharks host the Knights. Win for the Leeds Knights. What a tough weekend for the Sharks. They've got their first points of the season, and then they've got to follow it up by travelling to Milton Keynes and then hosting Leeds. I mean, pretty tricky to see how they could have had a tough weekend, I would say, to follow up from having got their first points on the board. Phantoms host the Raiders. I'm going to go for Phantoms win there. Wildcats and Pitbulls play for the second time weekend. Go for another Wildcats win in that one. And then Bees host the Seahawks. Seahawks win is what I'll go for in that one. So those are predictions for the upcoming weekend. As always, get in contact, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of the predictions. Look forward to hearing from you all, and I'll be back next week with the usual roundup and looking forward to the upcoming fixtures. Bye for now.